After my husband's betrayal, his mistress's husband approached me. He said, "I have a 9-figure net worth. Just give the word and we'll be at the city clerk's office tomorrow morning." I needed only seconds to say yes. I sat tucked away in a quiet corner of a garden cafe in Soho. I had chosen the table myself. Shielded by a dense wall of ferns, I could survey the entire patio while remaining nearly invisible. On my table, the ice in my Arnold Palmer had long melted, the lemonade and iced tea drifting into two separate, watery bands. Some 30 feet away, at table 6, beside the koi pond, sat my husband Kevin. He wasn't alone. The woman opposite him wore a bold red silk slip dress that displayed a striking pair of long legs. Her name was Melanie. Anyone in New York's logistics and finance circles knew Melanie, wife of Alexander Sterling, the formidable chairman of Sterling Logistics, a genuine predator in the maritime shipping world. Kevin was smiling, that same smile I had once loved beyond reason, the smile that persuaded me, a precise, disciplined senior audit manager, to abandon my fast track at a Big Four firm. I had cashed out my 401k and every stock option I'd accumulated over 10 years to help him launch his construction company. Kevin's hand, the one still wearing the platinum wedding band I had chosen, was now openly stroking the back of Melanie's. I didn't cry. My eyes stayed dry. At 32, after a decade of wrestling numbers, barren balance sheets, and punishing tax seasons, I had developed an icy composure. All I felt was an immense pressure in my chest, as though a 1,000-pound stone were crushing the breath from my lungs. A month earlier, Kevin had returned home looking drained. He told me the company faced serious legal trouble and possible liquidation of every asset. He persuaded me to sign post-nuptial papers, essentially surrendering my rights in an uncontested divorce. "Ava, it's only a formality," he had begged, voice so earnest I never doubted him. "I need to place this new property development solely in my name to secure the loan and save us. If we stay legally linked and the company goes under, the bank will take the house, everything. Just sign. Once this passes, I'll undo it all." I signed because I trusted my husband, because I wanted to safeguard our future home, the one we would fill with the children we hadn't yet conceived. And now the truth was playing out in front of me. There was no endangered property development, only a deceitful man scheming to construct a new life atop the ruins of his faithful wife's sacrifice. "Seen enough?" A low, gravelly voice just above my head made me start. I looked up. A tall man in an impeccably tailored charcoal suit stood there. Angular face, deep-set eyes as cold as a winter lake. Alexander Sterling himself, chairman of Sterling Logistics, husband of the woman now entwined with mine. Without asking, Alex drew out the chair across from me. His presence was commanding, the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. He set a thick file on the table. The slap of paper against dark wood rang sharp and conclusive. "Your husband is spending my money," Alex said. His voice was level, as though reading from a routine financial statement. "And he's already prepared the ground to discard you." I glanced from the file to Alex. "What do you want?" He didn't reply at once. He slid the folder toward me. "Page 5, look." With unsteady fingers, I opened it. Page 5 held a notarized copy of the final judgment of dissolution of marriage dated 1 week earlier. The crimson seal of the New York County Supreme Court felt like a mocking brand across my life. "How is this possible?" My voice fractured. "He told me he hadn't filed yet. He said he was waiting after the crisis." "He filed the day you signed." His tone was cold, merciless, but mercifully honest. "And because you signed an agreement waiving all claims to marital assets to help him, legally you're left with nothing. The house you live in, the car you drive, even the money from your joint savings account that you handed over for his investments, all of it belongs to him now." I let the files slip from my fingers. The sting of betrayal surged up my throat like acid. I hadn't merely lost a husband, I had lost my dignity, my belief in simple human honor. I, Ava Reed, top-tier CPA, relentlessly pursued by elite firms, had been deceived in the cruelest possible way by the man who shared my bed. It was the most catastrophic misjudgment of my existence, and the price was my entire youth and every penny I had built. Alex studied my face, eyes narrowing with cool appraisal. Grief doesn't balance books. You're a finance expert. You understand write-offs better than most. That investment is gone. Time to restructure. I lifted my gaze to him, forcing composure back into place. I smoothed my hair, adjusted my blouse collar. You didn't track me down just to tell me I failed, did you, Mr. Sterling? A faint upward tilt touched the corner of his mouth, as though my swift rebound amused him. Very perceptive. Legally, you're single again. I've also finalized my divorce from Melanie, but she was more shrewd. She still wields considerable financial leverage in my company. The asset division remains in litigation. She has allies in my accounting department quietly diverting funds to prop up your ex-husband. He paused, leaning closer, voice dropping low. I command a fortune in the hundreds of millions, but I need someone I can trust, someone with the skill to audit my entire operation and staunch the hemorrhage Melanie is orchestrating. I need a legal wife to supplant her, granting that authority to purge the rot. Why me? I asked, my mind already racing, calculating the wild new variables of this proposition. First, you have motive. You loathe Kevin and Melanie equally. Second, your credentials are flawless. Former senior audit manager at a major retail conglomerate. CPA with a well-earned reputation for ruthless cost discipline. Third, and most critical, neither of us believes in love anymore. We can operate on pure mutual advantage. He met my eyes directly, laying down the final terms. If you accept, be at the city clerk's office tomorrow, 8 a.m. We're getting married. I glanced across the patio. Kevin was pressing a kiss to Melanie's forehead, wearing the complacent smirk of a man who believed he'd triumphed. He saw me as the naive, dutiful wife who understood only recipes and spreadsheets. He thought victory was his. I turned back to Alex. 3 seconds. That was all I required to commit to the largest risk of my life. I had already lost everything. There was nothing left to lose. Done, I said, voice steady. I accept. But one condition. I want complete, unilateral authority over the Sterling Logistics Finance Department. You will not interfere in my methods. Alex rose, fastening his suit jacket. I'll see you tomorrow, Mrs. Sterling. He walked away, leaving me with the file and the cold, crystalline outline of a revenge plan taking shape in my mind. The following morning, I rose earlier than usual. I selected a simple yet graceful ivory sheath dress that quietly revealed the slender figure I normally concealed beneath loose office attire. I applied makeup with precision, masking the shadows beneath my eyes from a night spent poring over corporate statutes. The woman in the mirror was no longer yesterday's Ava. That version had perished with the divorce decree. At 7:59 a.m. precisely, I stood before the Manhattan Municipal Building. A sleek black Mercedes Maybach glided to the curb. The door opened, and Alex emerged. Today, he wore a crisp white shirt, open at the collar, no tie, looking younger, less forbidding than the day before. "You're punctual," he remarked in place of hello. "Professional habit," I answered, crisp and brief. We entered together. The marriage registration moved with surprising speed, thanks to Alex's advance arrangements. When the pen met paper and I signed my name beside Alexander Sterling on the certificate, a sharp current raced down my spine. Not the rush of romance, but the thrill of a soldier receiving a powerful weapon just before the fight begins. The clerk handed us our 2 official copies. Alex collected them and passed one to me.
"Welcome to Sterling Logistics," he said, speaking my first name for the first time. "Thank you," I offered a professional, flawless smile. Stepping out of the building, the early morning sun caught the certificate in my hand, making it shimmer. I drew my phone, laid the marriage certificate across the hood of Alex's Maybach, and captured a razor-sharp photograph. In the frame, my name rested beside Alexander Sterling's, the vivid crimson state seal gleaming against the glossy black paint and the iconic stylized sails of the hood ornament. I opened my contacts, located the entry still labeled My Love, a name I hadn't yet found the strength to delete, and sent the image with a brief, cutting message. Thanks for quietly setting me free. It allowed me to finalize the paperwork just in time to become the legal wife of the chairman of Sterling Logistics this morning. Best wishes to you and your mistress. The message shifted to delivered. Alex stood beside me, watching in silence, only the faintest smirk tugging at his lips. "You're more ruthless than I anticipated." "In business, as in war, surprise accounts for half the victory," I replied, slipping my phone away. "Now take me to the office. I need to begin immediately." On the drive to Sterling Logistics headquarters, Alex passed me an employee ID card and an appointment letter. Chief Financial Officer. CFO. I arched an eyebrow. "You're handing me this role right away?" "I don't trust you," Alex said plainly. "I trust your hatred and your competence. This position was previously controlled by Melanie through a figurehead, the former head of accounting. I've already terminated him. You now hold the reins. You have the power of life and death over the department. Wield it wisely." I gripped the letter, feeling its substantial weight. This was no ordinary job. It was both sword and shield. I closed my eyes, summoning the organizational chart of Sterling Logistics I had memorized through the night. Melanie, though divorced, remained a major shareholder and possessed intimate knowledge of the company's vulnerabilities. Her embezzlement could not have been a lone operation. She required a network of accomplices. My task was to sever each connection, isolate her completely, and, above all, uncover irrefutable evidence of her collusion with Kevin to launder funds. I would ensure Kevin regretted the day he underestimated a woman who had always kept perfect books. The car halted before a soaring 30-story glass tower in the heart of the financial district. Alex stepped out and circled to open my door. The courteous gesture was not for me, but for the hundreds of employees watching from the lobby. "Ready?" he asked quietly. "Always," I answered, chin high as I walked beside him. From that instant, the war was officially declared. The phone in my purse erupted into furious vibration the moment I entered the private elevator reserved for the chairman. A glance at the screen confirmed it. Kevin. I let it ring until it rolled to voicemail. It began again immediately, then again, relentless. My silence was the most elegant psychological torment I could deliver at that moment. Meanwhile, in a luxury Tribeca condo, Kevin was no doubt unraveling. I could see it vividly. Phone hurled onto the sofa, face flushed crimson, pacing in frantic circles. Melanie would be nearby, frowning, demanding to know what had happened, and when he showed her the photograph, the perfect mask of her makeup would fracture. When the elevator reached the 30th floor, I answered calmly. "Hello." My tone was serene, as though speaking to a delivery courier. "Kevin, what the hell is this? That picture, it's photoshopped, right?" Kevin's voice cracked with raw panic. He couldn't believe it, or rather he refused to. "You think I have time to learn Photoshop?" I scoffed. "Black ink on white paper, a state seal. You're a business owner, Kevin. Surely you can distinguish a genuine document from a forgery. When did you even meet him? Were you cheating on me?" He launched into accusations, the familiar refrain of a thief crying foul. "Don't judge others by your own measure," I cut in, voice turning to tempered steel. "You quietly finalized our divorce behind my back. The court has issued the decree. Legally, I was single. Who I marry is my affair.
Besides, aren't you living with my new husband's ex-wife? In business terms, we might call it an equitable exchange. Kevin fell silent. In the background, I heard Melanie seize the phone. You little bitch, you think you can just stroll into Sterling Logistics? As long as I'm around, you'll go nowhere. Hello, Melanie, I replied, my voice honeyed, yet laced with venom. You're mistaken. I didn't stroll in to climb the corporate ladder. I entered as the chairman's legal wife, as the lady of the house. You, however, are now merely a shareholder, an outsider. I paused for effect. Oh, and I neglected to mention, I've just accepted the position of Chief Financial Officer. The first item on my agenda this morning is a comprehensive audit of all outstanding accounts between Sterling Logistics and KB Build Construction, my dear ex-husband's company. You wouldn't dare, Melanie shrieked. Why not? I continued smoothly. I understand KB owes Sterling a substantial sum of money for advance material costs on projects where no actual work has even begun. As the new CFO, I've assessed that debt as a high-risk liability. I intend to recall the funds immediately. Ava, don't do this. Kevin snatched the phone back, his tone shifting from fury to raw desperation. We can talk. Tell me what you want. I'll give you a cut from the land sale. Let's meet. The money from the land sale? I let out a low, dark chuckle. Keep it. You'll need every cent for the legal fees coming your way very soon. I ended the call and powered off my phone. The elevator doors parted. Before me stretched the grand lobby of Sterling Logistics. Employees moved briskly, yet all paused to offer respectful nods as Alex passed. Their gazes slid to me, curious, assessing, speculative. Alex turned, a flicker of admiration in his eyes. You've already terrified them half to death, but threats are easy. Execution is what matters. Just watch, I said, tightening my grip on my handbag as I strode toward the finance department. I wasn't issuing threats. I was declaring war. The finance and accounting division occupied the 28th floor. A thick glass door divided the realm of numbers from the rest of the company. I pushed it open and stepped inside. Alex followed close behind, a solid, unyielding presence at my back. The room hummed with conversation until we entered, then it fell abruptly silent. Clearly, word of the chairman's sudden marriage had already raced through the building. Everyone, settle down, Alex said. His voice was not raised, yet it carried the weight that demanded instant obedience. Every eye turned to us. He gestured toward me. This is Ava Sterling, my wife and the new chief financial officer of this corporation. Effective immediately, all decisions concerning expenditures and budget approvals must pass through her. The official announcement will arrive via company-wide email in 5 minutes. A quiet murmur swept the room. I scanned the faces. In the corner, a middle-aged woman with heavy gold-rimmed glasses stared back, not with surprise, but with naked hostility. Brenda, current head of accounting, Melanie's most trusted lieutenant. I had reviewed the personnel files. Brenda had signed off on dozens of fraudulent client entertainment expense reports, enabling Melanie to siphon funds unchecked. I walked straight to her desk. Hello, Brenda. I need you to hand over all ledgers, digital signature tokens, and ERP system passwords, immediately. Brenda rose, arms folded in defiance, exuding the confidence of an untouchable veteran. Mrs. Sterling, a proper handover requires time. There are years of records here. I can't simply turn them over. Besides, I report to the board of directors, which includes Miss Melanie. Your appointment came without warning. I need to confirm with her first. She was stalling, buying time to erase traces or alter records. I smiled, placing the appointment letter, wet signed by Alex and bearing the corporate seal, directly on her desk. According to company bylaws, the chairman holds authority to make executive appointments in urgent circumstances. Miss Melanie is now merely a shareholder with no operational authority. The chairman's directive is final. I glanced at Alex, then fixed my gaze on Brenda once more, my voice cold as frost. If you do not complete the handover within the next 15 minutes, I will prepare your termination notice for insubordination and obstruction of business operations. Simultaneously, I will have your workstation secured and request the NYPD's Financial Crimes Unit to investigate suspected embezzlement. The choice is yours, a discreet handover or departure in handcuffs. Brenda's face drained of color. She had not anticipated such swiftness, such legal precision. She looked to Alex for rescue, but he stood motionless, arms crossed, his expression plainly stating, "I stand fully behind my wife." Trembling slightly, Brenda opened her desk drawer and withdrew a set of keys and a security token. I'll begin the handover." "Good." I turned to the stunned staff. "From today, procedures change. Any expenditure exceeding $5,000 requires my personal approval. Anyone caught falsifying documents will draft their own resignation before I discover them. My career began in forensic accounting. Do not test me." I directed IT to revoke Brenda's system access at once and reset all administrative passwords. After Brenda silently gathered her personal items into a cardboard box and departed, I settled into the leather chair she had vacated. I logged into the system, the screen filled with numbers, disordered, tangled, yet rich with incriminating detail. The desk phone rang, an internal line from Melanie. "You have a great deal of nerve, Ava, firing my people." "This is only the warm-up," I replied, fingers already dancing across the keyboard. "You should be far more concerned about your own finances. I'm noticing several questionable transfers to that media company your brother operates. The invoices for services rendered appear highly irregular." The line went dead, followed by a sharp click as she hung up. I exhaled slowly, leaning back in the chair. The real battle was only just beginning. I didn't merely need to clean up the mess. I needed to lay a trap that Kevin and Melanie would step into of their own accord. Alex approached and set a steaming cup of coffee on my desk. "You handled that exceptionally well. I didn't choose the wrong person." "Don't praise me yet," I replied, taking a sip. The bitter heat jolted my system awake. "Brace yourself. A serious storm is approaching." The office lights were extinguished, leaving only the cool blue radiance of my monitor. The wall clock showed 10 p.m. Everyone else had left hours earlier, but I remained immersed in the digital ledgers Brenda had abandoned. To me, numbers spoke plainly, and these were shouting fraud. I didn't require cinematic hacking skills. I relied on the most basic auditing methods, cross-referencing, and verification. I opened the Q3 trial balance. One line item stood out at once. Third-party service costs had tripled compared to the prior year. I drilled into the marketing and administrative expense sub-accounts, a string of substantial payments for marketing services, event planning, and strategic consulting all flowed to a single vendor, Celestial Media LLC. I copied Celestial Media's EIN and entered it into the state business registry. The result loaded instantly. Registered agent Michael Vance. I permitted myself a small, satisfied smirk. Michael Vance was Melanie's younger brother. The scheme was almost childishly transparent. Divert funds from your husband's company to your brother's, then quietly reclaim them for yourself. I retrieved every digital invoice from Celestial Media. The total exceeded $15 million in just 6 months. The descriptions were deliberately vague: logistics solutions consulting, event planning, and strategic consulting. Yet when I cross-checked the dates against the company's actual operational calendar, no such events existed. No guest lists, no photographs, no executed contracts. This was textbook embezzlement through fictitious invoices designed to siphon cash and evade corporate income tax. I printed the suspicious bank statements and invoices, gathering them into a red folder. This was merely the surface. I turned to accounts payable. Scrolling to vendor liabilities, I located Kevin's company, KB Build Construction. The outstanding balance was staggering. $5 million advanced for a project that had produced nothing. I opened to contract details. Sterling Logistics had engaged KB Build to upgrade warehouse systems at the Port of New York and New Jersey. The agreement had been signed 3 months earlier, and Sterling had disbursed the full $5 million up front. But when I reviewed the project progress reports, the work completed column showed a pristine, mocking 0. Kevin had pocketed Sterling's $5 million without so much as driving a single nail. I lifted the receiver and dialed the head of the warehouse project management team. "Henderson?" came the drowsy voice. "Mr. Henderson, this is Ava Sterling, the new CFO. Apologies for the late call. I have a question about the port upgrade project with KB Build Construction. What is the current status?" A long pause, then a hesitant stammer. "Ma'am, they haven't even brought equipment onto the site. I've contacted them repeatedly, but their project manager keeps saying they're waiting on materials from overseas." "Miss Melanie also instructed me to simply allow them ample time," Mr. Henderson added. "I see. Thank you. First thing tomorrow morning, please send me a formal status report, countersigned by the independent supervisor." I hung up. The picture was now crystal clear. Kevin had treated Sterling's advance as his personal line of credit, or worse, funneled it toward purchasing the very plot of land he'd used to deceive me into signing the postnuptial agreement. The office door opened. Alex entered carrying 2 takeout containers. "I thought you might be planning to sleep here. Eat something before you carry on." I glanced at him, then at the towering stack of files on my desk. "I found the fox's tail." So quickly. Alex set the food down and drew a chair beside me. The faint, clean scent of his expensive cologne, crisp and masculine, stood in sharp contrast to the stale cigarette smoke that had lately clung to Kevin. "They were greedy, not cautious," I said, gesturing to the screen. "Or perhaps simply overconfident, believing no one would ever dare scrutinize the boss's ex-wife's accounts. Look here, $15 million routed to Melanie's brother, $5 million advanced to Kevin for a non-existent project. That's $20 million in cash bled from the company in only 2 quarters. Alex studied the figures, his expression hardened. "I knew she was skimming, but I never suspected the scale. No wonder our operating cash flow has been so constricted lately. For a logistics enterprise, cash flow is oxygen. Losing $20 million is like slicing an artery." "Don't worry," I said, opening one of the containers. The rich aroma of grilled steak arose, stirring my empty stomach. "I'll recover every cent, principal and interest." "Eat first," Alex replied, passing me a fork. "You'll need strength for the fight ahead. We have a most interesting board meeting tomorrow." I accepted the fork. For the first time in months, food held flavor, not because the steak was exceptional, but because I no longer waged this war in solitude. Later, Alex drove me to his private penthouse on the Upper West Side. After midnight, the duplex revealed itself as a stark, minimalist masterpiece of glass and steel, commanding an unobstructed view of the Hudson, vast, powerful, and profoundly solitary, much like its owner. "You can have this room," Alex said, opening the door to a spacious guest suite with the same river panorama. "I had it prepared for you. Anything you need, simply tell the housekeeper." I stepped inside. Everything was pristine and new, from the crisp linens to the heavy curtains. No trace of another woman lingered, confirming that Alex had lived alone for years, or that Melanie had never crossed this threshold. "Thank you." Alex leaned against the doorframe, observing me quietly before speaking. "Ava, this is a marriage of convenience. I will respect your privacy, but in front of staff and outsiders, we must perform our roles convincingly." "I understand," I said. "I'm a professional." The next morning, I descended for breakfast. The dining table could seat 20, yet only 2 settings were arranged at one end. Alex was already there, sipping black coffee while scanning financial reports on his iPad. "Good morning," I said, taking my seat. "Morning. Sleep well?" His eyes remained on the screen. "Very. The bed is far more comfortable than the sofa I was relegated to for the past month at Kevin's." The housekeeper presented 2 plates of eggs Benedict, perfectly poached and glistening with hollandaise. A strange pang struck me. It had been ages since anyone prepared breakfast for me. At home with Kevin, I was always the first awake, brewing coffee, pressing his shirts, then hurrying to ready myself for work. Something wrong? Not to your taste? Alex glanced up, noting my pause. No, I shook my head, lifting my fork. It's simply unfamiliar. We ate in companionable silence for a moment. Then Alex spoke, almost casually. How do you intend to handle the KB Build debt today? I finished my bite, dabbed my lips with the napkin, and answered with precision. I won't pursue payment through conventional channels. A demand letter would only invite excuses or a convenient insolvency declaration. I'll employ a different approach. Alex's interest sharpened. Which is? I'm sending formal notice to the bank that issued his performance bond. The contract included both a performance bond and an advance payment bond. If KB Build fails to deliver, the bank must reimburse Sterling Logistics. Then the bank can pursue Kevin directly, foreclosure if necessary. Alex gave a short, sharp laugh. Ruthless. Once the bank steps in, he'll have to liquidate everything to satisfy them. If he can't, his credit will be destroyed forever. No lender will touch him again. That's only the beginning, I continued. My gaze turned glacial. I'll also retain our independent auditors to re-examine the costs of every past project KB Build has handled for us. I suspect he's been inflating invoices for years. If we uncover solid proof, this shifts from civil dispute to criminal fraud. Alex regarded me, amusement giving way to unmistakable respect. You truly were born to be my wife.
We're cut from the same cloth, Alex had said at breakfast. The meal concluded in an odd yet strangely harmonious quiet. Two wounded souls discovering an unexpected alliance forged in calculation and ambition. I realized then that sharing space with a sharp, direct man like Alex was infinitely more tolerable than serving a hypocrite like Kevin. My morning at the office opened with a purge. I convened an emergency meeting of the entire accounting department and the project management team. I dropped the red file I had compiled overnight onto the conference table. The sharp crack made every head snap up. In this file is a complete list of suspected fraudulent invoices from Celestial Media, along with the current status of the KB Build contract. Who was directly responsible for processing these accounts? A young analyst tentatively raised his hand. Brenda handled those personally, ma'am. We only performed data entry based on the documents she provided. Data entry without verifying the validity and reasonableness of supporting documents constitutes negligence, I said, my tone cutting. Effective today, I am launching a comprehensive process review. Anyone who comes forward now with information regarding past irregularities will receive full amnesty and retain their position. Anyone caught concealing facts will face immediate termination and a recommendation for criminal prosecution. My words landed like ice water on anyone tempted to stay silent. Within minutes of the meeting's end, 3 employees knocked on my office door, requesting private conversations. Their accounts allowed me to reconstruct the full scope of Melanie and Kevin's money laundering operation. Kevin wasn't merely embezzling from his own construction firm. He had transformed KB Build into a conduit for processing fictitious invoices on behalf of Sterling Logistics. Whenever Sterling sought to reduce taxable income, Melanie would instruct Kevin to issue sham invoices for labor and materials. Funds flowed from Sterling to KB Build. Kevin would withdraw the cash, retain a commission, and funnel the remainder back to Melanie. A seamless, closed circuit. Their single fatal error, the movement of money, bore no correspondence to any actual flow of goods or services. I sat at my computer, diagramming the cash flow. Arrows traced from Sterling to KB Build, from KB Build to Kevin's personal account, and from there to an offshore account registered under the name Carol Diller at a foreign bank. I zoomed in on the name. Carol Miller was no stranger. It was Kevin's mother's name, Carol. A chill ran through me. Kevin had used his own elderly mother's identity to conceal illicit funds. He hadn't merely betrayed me, he had entangled his sweet, unsuspecting mother from Ohio in a federal crime without her knowledge. His ruthlessness had sunk to a new depth.
The door flew open. This time it wasn't Alex. Melanie stormed in unannounced, flanked by two imposing bodyguards. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" she bellowed, slamming both palms on my desk. "Why has the bank frozen KB Build's accounts?" I calmly removed my reading glasses and met her gaze. "Hello, Melanie. Entering my office without knocking violates company policy. As for a bank freezing a vendor's account, that is the bank's prerogative. Why ask me unless you have a personal interest in my ex-husband's company?" "Don't play coy," Melanie hissed, jabbing a finger toward my face. "You sent the demand notice for the advance payment, didn't you? You're trying to destroy Kevin." "I am simply discharging my duty as CFO. Shareholder capital cannot be squandered. $5 million is not trivial. If KB Build can demonstrate its ability to perform, I'm confident the bank will release the hold. You appear unusually invested." Melanie's jaw clenched. "You're clever, but hear me clearly, Ava. Touch my interests, and I will make your life unbearable. You think Alex loves you? He's merely using you." "At least he uses me openly and legally," I replied, rising to stand level with her. "You and Kevin, by contrast, slink around in shadows. That's what's truly pathetic. Tell Kevin to prepare the funds. His deadline is 3 days." Melanie scoffed, whirled around, and marched out. I could see the fear beneath her fury. I was severing the tentacles of her scheme one by one. 3 days later, precisely as anticipated, Kevin failed to produce the repayment. Cornered animals lash out blindly. On Monday morning, an anonymous email flooded every inbox at Sterling Logistics. The subject line was lurid: the truth about the new CFO, gold digger or high-class escort. Attached was a link to a skillfully edited video, footage of me entering a hotel during an old audit engagement, spliced with suggestive audio. Below it, a fabricated article alleged a years-long affair with Alex, a plot to seize Kevin's assets, and my subsequent abandonment of him for a billionaire. The building hummed with whispers. Hallway glances shifted from admiration to disdain and prurient curiosity. I sat at my computer, fingers clenched so tightly around the mouse that my knuckles blanched. Kevin had stooped even lower than I imagined. He aimed to weaponize public opinion, shatter my credibility, and force my resignation. My phone rang. "Alex, have you seen the email?" His voice was eerily composed. "I have. He's gone dirty." "Don't worry. Stay in your office. Don't leave. I'll handle it." 5 minutes later, the building's PA system crackled. Alex's voice, sharp, authoritative, resounded across every floor, summoning all employees to assemble in the main lobby immediately. I descended as well. Alex stood on a raised platform, his features carved in cold fury. Flanking him were the head of IT and the company's general counsel. "I have just been informed of an email defaming my wife, Ava Sterling," Alex declared, his words echoing through the cavernous space. "I stand here to state unequivocally this is a malicious, baseless fabrication. Our IT department has traced the sender's IP address. It originated from a public internet cafe located near the private residence of Mr. Kevin Miller, director of KB Build Construction Company." Alex gave a curt signal. The massive screen behind him flared to life, displaying crisp security footage from the internet cafe. There, unmistakable on the screen, stood Kevin, baseball cap pulled low, face mask in place, hunched over a terminal in the internet cafe at the precise moment the email was dispatched. A collective gasp rippled through the assembled employees. "Our legal team is presently filing suit against Mr. Miller for libel and defamation under New York law," Alex continued, his tone unyielding. "Furthermore, let me be unequivocal. Any Sterling Logistics employee caught discussing or disseminating this fabricated material will face immediate termination. We are a Fortune 500 enterprise, not a high school cafeteria for petty gossip." The lobby fell into absolute silence. Alex had smothered the rumor at its birth with incontrovertible evidence. He turned to me then, his gaze softening by the faintest degree. One more gift for him. He passed me a slim blue folder. "What is this?" I asked. "Kevin's loan portfolio from a private lender. He secured a high-interest $2 million advance using his equipment, his workshop, and even his parents' house in Ohio as collateral. The loan is 10 days delinquent and has been declared in default. The lender was poised to seize the assets." I opened the folder. There was Kevin's signature, bold, familiar, on every page. He had taken the loan behind my back to feed his gambling and sustain Melanie. "I spoke with the lender," Alex said, a predatory smile curving his lips. "They agreed to assign the distressed debt to a private equity firm in which I hold controlling interest." The implication struck instantly. "So now you're Kevin's creditor?" "No," Alex corrected, locking eyes with me. "We are, as husband and wife. We are now his single largest creditor. The power of life and death rests in your hands, Ava. Whether he drowns or survives is your decision." I held the portfolio. It felt like a guillotine blade poised above Kevin's neck. Yet I wasn't ready to let it fall. Not yet. I wanted him to taste the same helplessness, the same crushing dread I had endured. I arranged to meet Kevin, not at a cafe, but in the forsaken offices of KB Build Construction. When I arrived, the place was a ghost town. Most employees had fled over unpaid wages. Kevin sat alone at his desk, head buried in his hands, surrounded by empty liquor bottles and overflowing ashtrays. He looked a decade older than he had a week earlier. Seeing me, he lifted bloodshot eyes blazing with rage. "What are you doing here? Come to gloat?" "I've come to collect a debt," I replied icily, setting the portfolio on his desk. He glanced at it and sneered. "I owe the lender, not you. Don't try to intimidate me. The worst they can do is take the workshop. I don't care." "Look closer," I said, indicating the debt assignment agreement. "The lender sold your obligation to Sterling Capital Investments, and the legal representative of Sterling Capital Investments happens to be me, Ava Sterling." The blood drained from Kevin's face. He seized the document, hands trembling violently. "No, this can't be. How could you afford to buy my debt? It was him, wasn't it, Sterling? Who facilitated it is irrelevant. What matters is that I am now your creditor. Per the loan terms, I may demand immediate surrender of all collateral to satisfy the obligation." I surveyed the rundown office. This workshop and a handful of rusted excavators won't suffice. "Ah, but there remains your parents' house in Ohio, doesn't it? The deed of trust expressly includes the property and land belonging to Mr. Walter and Mrs. Carol Miller." At the mention of his parents, genuine terror seized him. He lunged, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. Two of Alex's security personnel, stationed just outside, moved in swiftly to restrain him. "Ava, I'm begging you. Anything you want, I'll give it. Take the company, take everything. Just don't touch my parents' house. They're old, they're fragile. If they learn the bank is foreclosing, it will kill them." Watching the man who had once been my husband grovel on the floor, I felt no triumph, only revulsion. He had gambled away their security and now hid behind them as a shield. "When you deceived me into signing those divorce papers, did you consider what it would mean for me to be cast out with nothing? When you carried on with Melanie, did you spare a thought for how I would feel?" "I was wrong. Melanie manipulated me. She promised that if I helped her launder this one batch, we'd split millions. I was blinded by greed. Ava, for the sake of our 10 years together, please give me a chance." "Our 10 years ended the instant you filed those papers." I turned away. "I'm offering two options. First, you sign all shares of KB Build Construction and the new plot of land to me as partial satisfaction of the debt. Second, tomorrow my attorneys initiate foreclosure on your parents' home." Kevin stared up, face ashen. "That land is the last thing I have left." "You have no leverage. You have 5 minutes." I glanced at my watch. Each second told in the oppressive quiet like a hammer against his nerves. "I'll sign," he whispered, head bowed in utter defeat. "I'll sign." I nodded to the lawyer waiting with the prepared documents. Kevin took the pen, hand shaking, and scrolled his name across every page. With each signature, he seemed to diminish further. Holding the executed papers, I felt a quiet release. I had reclaimed what was mine, and more crucially, stripped him of the means to perpetrate further harm. "You're destitute now, Kevin," I said, my parting words as I walked toward the door. "Try living honestly. Don't make your parents suffer any longer." Outside, Alex waited in the car. He offered a small, knowing smile. "Finished?" He signed. "Are you happy?" I leaned my head against the cool leather seat, watching the city lights streak past. "Not happy, but it feels just." My personal vengeance was halfway complete, yet the larger war against Melanie and the money-laundering empire she commanded was only beginning. Kevin had been merely a pawn. Melanie was the queen, and I knew she would not remain silent now that her pawn had been removed. I wasted no time savoring my triumph over Kevin. He had been nothing more than a pawn on the vast chessboard Melanie commanded. The true adversary still lurked in the shadows. To lure her into the open, I required another pawn, one who had once been her most trusted confidant, Brenda. After her dismissal from Sterling Logistics, Brenda became virtually unemployable. A termination for professional misconduct on her record ensured no legitimate firm would consider her. A private investigator I retained tracked her movements and reported she now resided in a dilapidated rented house on the city's fringes, relentlessly pursued by loan sharks over mounting gambling debts. It was time for the next phase. On Wednesday afternoon, I drove to a secluded cafe in Queens where I had arranged to meet her. When I stepped inside, she sat hunched in a dim corner, hands trembling around a glass of water. She appeared 20 years older than the imperious head of accounting I had once known. Seeing me, terror flooded her eyes. She started to rise and flee. "Sit down," I said, my voice steady yet commanding enough to pin her in place. "If you leave now, I will forward this file to the district attorney's office without delay." I placed a plain brown envelope on the table. Brenda stared at it, throat working. What do you want?" "You may be fired, but your crimes remain," I replied, opening the envelope and extracting several documents. "This is proof that you colluded with an auto repair shop to inflate maintenance costs for the company's truck fleet over the past 3 years. The amount you personally pocketed exceeds $200,000. That constitutes grand larceny, Brenda. Sentencing guidelines call for 5 to 15 years. The color vanished from her face. She slid from her chair and knelt beside the table. "Mrs. Sterling, please, mercy. I have an elderly mother and a young son. I can't go to prison. I gambled it all away. I can't repay it." I regarded the weeping woman with no trace of compassion, yet my mind recognized the perfect opportunity. "Get up. I didn't come for your sob story. I can make this disappear and even help you settle your loan sharks on one condition." Brenda lifted her head, a fragile spark of hope in her eyes. "What condition? I'll do anything if it keeps me out of jail." "I want you to be my spy," I said, voice dropping low as I met her gaze directly. "I know you're still in contact with Melanie. She needs someone she trusts to manage her back-channel transactions now that she can no longer use Sterling personnel. Return to her, feign loyalty, report every move to me." Brenda hesitated. She understood Melanie's ruthlessness, but the specter of prison loomed larger. "If she discovers me, she'll kill me." "If you refuse, the police will be at your door tomorrow," I answered coldly. "Besides, Melanie abandoned you the moment you were terminated. Did she offer even $1 toward your debts, or did she discard you like a spent tool?" The words stuck deep. Brenda's fists tightened, fear giving way to bitter resentment. "You're right. That ungrateful bitch. I helped her move millions, and when I needed her, she wouldn't even take my calls. Fine, I'll do it. What do you need? I need to know where Melanie is relocating her assets. Intelligence indicates she's liquidating everything at speed, consolidating cash. Brenda glanced around furtively, then leaned in to whisper. She's planning something major. She sold properties in Miami and the Hamptons, raising roughly $30 million in cash. She intends to wire it to a shell corporation in the Cayman Islands this Friday afternoon, disguised as an investment consulting contract. Once the funds clear, she'll fly there permanently, leaving sterling to absorb the consequences in the U.S. $30 million, a devastating sum. If Melanie succeeded, Sterling Logistics would be crippled, its cash flow would hemorrhage, and she would escape unscathed. Which bank is she using for the transfer? Global Trust Bank, Midtown branch. She's very close with the branch manager. They'll expedite the international wire for her. I permitted myself a small smile. The information was invaluable. Excellent. Keep monitoring her. Inform me the precise moment she initiates the transfer. When this is over, I'll destroy your file and provide a bonus to help you start anew. Brenda nodded vigorously. I rose, left cash for the drinks, and walked out. The afternoon sun stretched my shadow long across the pavement. A flawless net was taking shape in my mind. This Friday would prove unforgettable for Melanie. Friday afternoon, tension saturated my office like smoke. Outside, a torrential downpour battered the windows, as if the storm itself sought entry. I sat before my monitor, eyes fixed on Sterling's corporate cash management dashboard. Alex occupied the chair opposite, spinning a pen idly, his attention locked on his phone. We awaited Brenda's text. 2:30 p.m. Still nothing. For an international wire to clear same day, Melanie had to act before the cutoff, typically 3:30 or 4 p.m. After that, the transaction would be deferred to the next business day. To a fugitive like Melanie, even one additional day represented intolerable risk. 2:45 p.m. My phone vibrated. Brenda's message. She just arrived at the bank, entering the VIP room to meet the branch manager. The fish is in the net, I told Alex. She's at the bank. He nodded, expression grave. Are you certain you can stop it? Once the money leaves U.S. jurisdiction, it's gone forever. Don't worry, the net is already cast. I opened another chat window and messaged Mark, head of corporate banking at Global Trust, an old business school classmate. I had pre-briefed him on a potentially fraudulent transaction involving Melanie's account. As CFO of Sterling Logistics, I possessed legitimate authority to request scrutiny of unusual activity tied to a major shareholder embroiled in ongoing litigation. 3:10 p.m., a system notification flashed across my screen. A wire transfer of $30 million had just been initiated from Melanie's personal account. Subject: Payment for investment consulting contract number 01-2023. Beneficiary: Sunny Horizon Investments Corp., Cayman Islands. This is it, I said, pointing at the screen. The transaction status read, pending approval. I immediately dialed Mark. Mark, it's Ava. The $30 million wire just appeared in the system. That's the embezzled money I warned you about. You need to block it now. Frantic typing sounded on the other end. I see it, Ava. It's a massive amount, but the branch is pressing hard for immediate approval. The manager is citing her VIP status and insisting all paperwork is in order. If I block it without cause, I'll face a formal complaint. The paperwork is fabricated. Sunny Horizon is a shell company, I replied, voice sharp and urgent. I'm faxing you an emergency injunction from the city court to freeze all of Melanie's assets pending resolution of our post-divorce asset dispute. Use the compliance red flag to hold the transaction. All you need is to delay it past 3:30 p.m. and she's finished. Understood. I trust you. I'm routing it to compliance for in-depth review. That will take at least 2 hours, well past cutoff. Not even God will get that wire through today. I hung up, exhaling a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding. On my screen, the status changed from pending approval to under review. In the VIP room at the bank, I could picture the pandemonium. Melanie must be unraveling. 3:20 p.m. Only 10 minutes remained. Brenda texted again. She's screaming at the staff, demanding the CEO. Her face is bright red. I replied, "Let her scream. The CEO is in a meeting with me right now." There was no meeting, of course, but I knew bank protocol. Once flagged as high risk, no one dared approve, especially with anti-money laundering regulations so stringent. 3:30 p.m. The SWIFT system closed for the day. Melanie's wire was officially rejected. Reason? Transaction requires additional documentation verifying legal source of funds. The money remained in her account, trapped. She could neither transfer nor withdraw it. Alex looked at me with undisguised admiration. He rose, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed one to me. "Congratulations, a perfect knockout. You didn't just save the money, you severed her escape route." I swirled the glass, watching the red liquid catch the light like spilled blood. "It's not over yet. Cornered animals turn on their own. Melanie just lost $30 million. The first person she'll blame is Kevin. Let's watch the next act." Exactly as I predicted, the bank failure hurled Melanie into a spiral of rage. She couldn't accept that her flawless exit had been thwarted at the final second by a technical issue. Storming out of the bank, she received a call from Kevin. My ex-husband sounded more desperate than ever. After signing away his assets to me, he was now hunted by loan sharks he'd borrowed from to fuel his gambling. They had surrounded his parents' house in Ohio. He was hiding in a cheap motel, dialing Melanie as his last hope. "Melanie, you have to help me," Kevin pleaded, voice cracking. "They're threatening to kill my whole family if I don't pay back $500,000 by tonight. Please, just lend me something. I'll be your slave for life. I'll pay you back." Melanie, already incandescent over her frozen $30 million, erupted. "Shut up, you useless idiot," she shrieked, all traces of refinement gone. "I'm in deep trouble myself. Your pathetic ex-wife managed to get my accounts frozen. You're a worthless parasite. If you hadn't been so stupid as to divorce her so quickly, she wouldn't have had the leverage to do this." "What are you talking about?" Kevin stammered. "What does Ava have to do with this?" "Ask her yourself. She's the one who blocked my transfer. You two are exactly alike. Never call me again." Melanie hung up and blocked his number. She climbed into her car and ordered the driver to take her to her private mansion, where she kept her remaining valuables, jewelry, diamonds. She had to find another way out, perhaps by land across the Canadian border. On the other end, Kevin dropped the phone. His final lifeline had snapped. He sank to the floor of the grimy motel room, surrounded by empty instant noodle cups. He had lost everything: his wife, his home, his career, and now the mistress he thought would crown him king. From the hallway came heavy footsteps and furious shouts. "Kevin, come out! You can't hide forever." Terrified, he peered out the third-floor window. Not high enough to kill, but enough to shatter his legs. No escape. In desperation, a familiar, cowardly plan took shape. He grabbed a small fruit knife from the table and made a shallow cut on his wrist, just enough to draw blood, nothing life-threatening. Then he smeared ketchup from a noodle packet across his arm for dramatic effect, lay on the floor, and pretended to convulse. When the thugs kicked down the door, they found him sprawled in a pool of red, mostly sauce. Panicked at the prospect of a murder charge, they fled. The motel owner burst in, saw the scene, and immediately called 911. Kevin was rushed to the nearest hospital. He lay on the gurney, eyes squeezed shut, ears straining. "I'm safe, at least for tonight." He didn't know that news of his attempted suicide had reached me almost instantly through Alex's network. "He's putting on a show," I said, watching motel security footage on my tablet. "The way he smeared ketchup on his arm is truly pathetic." "What do you want to do?" Alex asked, adjusting his tie. "Pay a visit to an old friend. We must. After all, we were married for 10 years. Besides, I need to deliver a final prescription to cure him of his delusions." The emergency room carried the sharp tang of antiseptic. Kevin lay in the narrow bed, wrists wrapped in gauze, an oxygen mask fogging faintly with each breath. He was feigning a deep coma, yet the heart monitor betrayed him, steady beeps accelerating slightly from anxiety. Alex and I entered together. I wore head-to-toe black, cradling a bouquet of white chrysanthemums, funeral flowers. Alex stood beside me, black leather briefcase in hand. A nurse moved to intercept us, but Alex produced a hospital benefactor's card. Sterling Logistics was among the largest donors. The nurse inclined her head and withdrew, closing the door softly behind her. I approached the bedside and set the white blooms on the nightstand. The measured click of my heels against the linoleum was the only sound in the room. "Stop pretending, Kevin. Your performance is abysmal," I said evenly. He lay motionless, but his eyelids flickered. He was attempting to outlast me. "Very well. If you won't wake, I'll simply speak to the corpse." I drew up a chair. "The doctor noted the cut on your wrist was superficial, 3 stitches, but the affliction of cowardice you suffer from, there is no remedy." Realizing the pretense had collapsed, Kevin slowly opened his eyes and removed the mask. He stared at Alex and me with a volatile mixture of hatred and dread. "What are you two doing here? Come to confirm I'm still breathing?" "Your death would be far too merciful," Alex replied from the foot of the bed. "We've brought you good news." Kevin's expression shifted. "Really?" "The loan sharks pursuing you. The police dismantled their entire network last night." His eyes brightened with desperate relief. "So I'm safe? From them?" I offered the smile he had once called angelic. Now it gleamed like a scalpel. "Safe from them, perhaps, but not from the law." I nodded to Alex. He opened the briefcase and withdrew a document bearing the official seal of the IRS. "This is formal notice of a criminal investigation into KB Build Construction for tax evasion, including penalties for fraudulent invoicing. The liability approaches $5 million. Investigators already possess compelling evidence that you procured fictitious invoices from a network of shell companies controlled by Melanie's family." Kevin lurched upright, pain forgotten. "No, it wasn't only me. It was Melanie. She instructed me. I just signed the papers." "You signed," I countered, voice glacial. "That makes you legally accountable. Melanie is shrewd. Her name appears on nothing connected to your company. Every signature, every seal belongs to the director, Kevin Miller. Whom do you believe a jury will credit? A desperate, debt-ridden man like you, or the black and white paper trail?" Kevin trembled, sweat tracing rivulets down his face. He stood at the threshold of federal prison. A tax evasion case of this scale carried 10 to 20 years. "Ava, please help me." He reverted to old habits, scrambling from the bed to kneel before me. "You're a CFO. You understand the law. I don't want prison. I still have my parents." I regarded him without a trace of warmth. "I granted you mercy when I accepted your assets to settle the bank debt. That could have been the end. But your greed, and Melanie's, knew no bounds. You crossed the final line." Alex interjected, adopting the role of conciliator. "Is there a path forward? If you cooperate fully with the investigation, provide a complete confession and evidence against the true architect, you may secure a plea agreement, a reduced sentence." Kevin seized the lifeline, nodding frantically toward Alex. "I'll talk. I'll tell them everything. I kept a private ledger, a notebook recording every cash split with Melanie. She insisted I document it for her records. It's hidden in the safe at my parents' house." Alex and I exchanged a brief, knowing glance. This was the decisive piece, the smoking gun that would seal Melanie's fate. "Excellent," I said, rising. Rest here. An investigator will arrive shortly to take your statement. Be truthful. It is your sole remaining option." We left the room. Kevin remained on the floor, dazed. He understood his former life had ended, yet he now possessed a final chance to pull Melanie into the abyss with him. In the corridor, Alex took my hand and gave it a gentle squeeze. "You were masterful. One maneuver, two captures. You neutralized Kevin and secured the evidence to bury Melanie forever." "A team effort," I replied, withdrawing my hand to smooth my hair. "Now let's retrieve that ledger before Melanie learns of this." The rain had ceased. A faint rainbow arched across the distant horizon. I drew a deep breath of the fresh post-storm air. The war was nearing an end. Alex and I departed the hospital that night. He offered the driver, but I insisted on taking the wheel myself. The sensation of commanding the car as it cut through the darkness steadied me. The Maybach devoured the highway westward, toward the quiet rural expanse of Ohio where Kevin's family resided. His hometown was a modest farming community, encircled by vast fields of corn and soy. 3 years had passed since my last visit, for his grandfather's funeral. Then I had been the cherished daughter-in-law, bustling in the kitchen, preparing meals for the entire extended family. "What are you thinking about?" Alex asked, breaking the silence. "Kevin's parents," I confessed. "They're simple, diligent farmers. They loved me. I cannot imagine their reaction when they learn what their son has become, and that the daughter-in-law they adored is the one consigning him to prison." Alex exhaled, gazing into the shadowed countryside. "That is the tragedy of greed. Kevin chose this road. He must bear the consequences. And you, Ava, you were doing what is right. Had you allowed them to continue, how many other families would have been destroyed by their tainted money?" I nodded, though my heart remained heavy. Justice could feel merciless. At 3 a.m., our car rolled to a stop before the familiar 3-bedroom ranch house with its red front door. The white picket fence showed signs of age, yet the bougainvillea trellis beside the porch bloomed in defiant splendor beneath the soft yellow glow of the street lamp. I stepped out, the cool night air brushing against my skin. A dog began to bark from the backyard. Moments later, a light switched on inside, and the front door opened. Kevin's father, Walter, stepped onto the porch in an old flannel shirt over pajamas, flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. "Who's out there?" he called, voice rough with sleep. "Dad, it's me, Ava," I said. Walter squinted, then his weathered face brightened. "Ava, child, what brings you here at this hour? Where's Kevin?" He hurried to unlatch the gate. Carol, Kevin's mother, hurried out behind him and clasped my hands. "You came all this way without calling. Oh, you're freezing. Come inside, come inside." Their unguarded warmth pierced my chest. They knew nothing of the divorce, nothing of the catastrophe unfolding hundreds of miles away. Kevin had concealed it all from them. "We were just passing through on urgent business," I explained, introducing Alex briefly. They ushered us in with the same homespun hospitality I remembered, brewing tea, setting out homemade cookies. The house remained unchanged, simple, warm, comforting. Our wedding photographs still hung in the living room, our younger beaming faces now a cruel irony. "Mom, Dad," I began, setting my teacup down and drawing a steadying breath. "I'm sorry, this isn't a social call. I'm here to retrieve something Kevin concealed in your safe." Walter's brows lifted in surprise. "Something he hid? He told us the safe was only for the property deeds." "He was hiding evidence of a crime, Dad," I said, choosing candor over comfort. "Kevin has been involved in illegal dealings, tax evasion, money laundering. The authorities are investigating. If I can't deliver this evidence and plead for leniency, he faces a very long prison sentence." Carol's teacup slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. She gripped the table edge, trembling. "What are you saying? Our Kevin? He's such a good boy." "Mom, he fell in with the wrong people. Greed took hold. Please, believe me, I'm the only one who can help him now." Walter studied me with those kind, knowing eyes. He recognized the truth in my face. Without a word, he rose and disappeared into the bedroom. Moments later, he returned and placed a small wooden box on the table. He sent this last week, said it was a good luck charm for his business, told us never to open it. Is this what you need? I lifted the lid. Inside lay a black leather-bound notebook and a USB flash drive. I turned a few pages. Kevin's meticulous handwriting chronicled every date, every amount received from Melanie, every disbursement, every split. This was the ledger of their crimes. I closed the notebook and took Carol's weathered hand in mine. Thank you. I promise I'll do everything possible to secure a reduced sentence for him. But there's something else you must know. What more could there be? Carol whispered, tears already falling. Kevin and I are divorced. The room seemed to still. Only the grandfather clock's steady tick measured the silence. Carol dissolved into wrenching sobs. Walter sank heavily into his chair, his aged face collapsing inward. I could not remain. I feared my own composure would shatter. I placed an envelope of cash on the table, my first month's salary from Sterling. Please take this for your expenses. I must leave now to make it back in time. Alex and I moved swiftly to the car. Carol's anguished cries lingered in the quiet night. Inside the vehicle, I pressed my face to the steering wheel and let the tears come at last. Let it out, Alex murmured, resting a gentle hand on my shoulder. You've done all that was humanly possible. I wept until nothing remained, for the death of a 10-year marriage, for 2 innocent elderly souls, for the naive woman I had once been. As the first pale light of dawn touched the horizon, I dried my eyes and turned the key. Let's go home, Alex. We have an appointment with the police. Melanie will not escape. By 8 a.m. Monday, Sterling Logistics headquarters was encircled by police cruisers and news vans. The billion-dollar money laundering scandal had broken, thanks in part to a carefully timed tip from Alex's PR team. From his office window, Alex and I watched the unfolding scene on security feeds. Has the evidence reached the authorities? Alex asked the chief counsel over the phone. Delivered at 6 a.m., sir. The chief of the Economic Crimes Division reviewed it personally and authorized an emergency arrest warrant for Miss Melanie Vance. Good. And Kevin Miller? Being transferred from the hospital to a detention center as we speak. I gazed out at the gathering storm clouds over the city. The legal tempest had finally broken. Meanwhile, at Melanie's gated mansion, chaos reigned. After a sleepless night, she was frantically cramming jewelry, watches, and cash into a large suitcase. The net was tightening. With her funds frozen, she had resorted to the backup plan: escape overland to Canada, then onward to Europe. She had already paid a coyote $50,000 to orchestrate it. Hurry, she snapped at the maid. Forget the Hermes bags. Bring the diamonds. The doorbell rang, sharp, insistent. Melanie started, dropping a diamond ring. She checked the security monitor. Police. Dozens of heavily armed officers waited at the gate. A commanding officer's voice boomed through the bullhorn. Melanie Vance, we have a warrant for your arrest. Open the gate and cooperate. Her face blanched. She bolted for the rear door, which opened onto a private dock where a powerboat waited. But she had miscalculated. Alex and I had anticipated this escape route. When Melanie flung the back door wide, she froze. 2 stone-faced federal agents blocked her path. Going somewhere, Miss Vance? One asked dryly. Melanie staggered backward. The suitcase fell. Cash and gems scattered across the patio stones. She spun to flee inside, but the tactical team had already breached the front gate and was pouring through the house. Trapped, she screamed in raw desperation. I'm innocent. This is a setup. I demand my lawyer. An officer recited her rights in a flat, unemotional tone and snapped handcuffs around her wrists. The once dominant queen of logistics, now disheveled and broken, was escorted away in handcuffs. Her image, captured by dozens of telephoto lenses, circulated globally within the hour. Stock prices of every company tied to her family plunged sharply. I switched off the television. It's over. My phone vibrated, a text from an unknown number, though I recognized Brenda's hand. Thank you, Mrs. Sterling. I saw the news. As promised, I'll disappear from this city. I deleted the message. Brenda had been another casualty of greed and frailty. I harbored no further desire for vengeance against her. Alex poured 2 glasses of wine and offered one to me. To Justice. I touched my glass to his, yet the triumph I had anticipated tasted only of Carol's tears and the lingering acid of betrayal. I looked at Alex, the man who had stood unwaveringly beside me throughout this entire campaign. His gaze, once cold and strategic, now held a quiet, profound understanding. "I'm tired," I said softly. "Rest. Let the lawyers manage the remainder. You've earned a day off." I smiled, and for the first time, the expression felt light, authentic. 1 month later, at the detention center, I was granted a visit with Kevin to complete the final asset-related paperwork. He had grown painfully thin, head shaved, lost inside an oversized prison jumpsuit. He refused to meet my eyes. "How are you?" I asked, the question both ritual and cruel irony. "Barely alive," he muttered. "Only here do I grasp the true cost of what I've done. I dream of my parents, of you, every night." "Your parents are well. I've been sending them money each month. They believe you're on an extended business trip abroad. I couldn't bear to tell them the truth." Kevin's head snapped up, tears spilling freely. "You're still caring for them after everything I did to you?" "I do it for my own peace of mind, not for you," I replied evenly. "They are good people. They deserve none of this." I slid the document through the slot in the glass partition. "This is a civil settlement. Sign it. I'll apply the assets you transferred to me towards settling your tax liabilities and penalties. It will be treated as a mitigating factor. Your sentence may be reduced from 15 years to perhaps 7 or 8. Kevin lifted the pen, hands trembling violently. He stared at me. "Why? Why are you helping me? You should despise me." "I do despise you," I said, meeting his gaze with absolute clarity. "But I refuse to keep that tainted money. I want every remnant of you erased from my life so I can begin again with a clean slate. Consider this the final courtesy I can extend to the man I once called my husband." Kevin dropped his head into his arms and wept like a child. He signed the document, signature smeared by tears. Leaving the visiting room, I passed Melanie's attorney. He shook his head wearily at the sight of me. "How is she?" I asked. "A wreck. She still refuses to confess, only rants about suing you and Mr. Sterling, but the ledger and Kevin's testimony are ironclad. She faces life without parole as the architect of the entire scheme. All her assets are frozen. No one can save her now." I nodded and continued on. Melanie and Kevin, the two who had conspired to ruin me, were now destroying each other from within prison walls. Their unholy partnership had collapsed completely. Stepping outside the detention center, brilliant sunshine greeted me. Alex leaned against his car, waiting, a cup of bubble tea in his hand, my favorite quiet indulgence, mentioned only once in passing. "All finished?" he asked, handing me the drink. "All finished. A great weight has lifted." "Then let's go home. There's a major shareholder meeting this afternoon. The CFO cannot be absent." I took a long sip of the cool, sweet tea. Its flavor gently dissolved the bitterness of the past. "Yes, let's go home, honey." It was the first time the endearment had slipped out naturally, unforced by any performance. Perhaps after the storm, the sky truly does clear, and when everything has been shattered, one learns to treasure what remains. The trial concluded 6 months later, a media spectacle. I sat in the gallery beside Alex. In the defendant's box, Melanie and Kevin stood deliberately apart, refusing to acknowledge one another. Melanie appeared haggard, aged, strands of gray threading her hair. She denied everything, pointing blame in every direction but her own. Kevin, by contrast, confessed fully, offered apologies, and accepted his fate. The verdict was read. Melanie, life imprisonment for embezzlement and money laundering, with total forfeiture of assets. Kevin, 8 years for tax evasion and conspiracy, reduced in recognition of his cooperation and restitution. When the sentences were pronounced, Melanie collapsed, wailing. Kevin merely bowed his head. He glanced at me one last time, eyes filled with remorse and an odd, quiet gratitude. I returned the slightest nod, a last farewell to our shared history. As we exited the courthouse, cameras flashing around us, Alex took my hand. "It's truly over." "Yes," I replied. "What goes around comes around." We stepped into blinding sunlight. The mission was complete. The betrayers had been held to account. Yet instead of exhilaration, I felt an immense, hollow quiet. I looked at Alex, the man who had stood unwaveringly beside me throughout this entire campaign. His gaze, once cold and strategic, now held a quiet, profound understanding. "I'm tired," I said softly. "Rest. Let the lawyers manage the remainder. You've earned a day off." I smiled, and for the first time, the expression felt light, authentic. A week after the trial, I spent the morning at the office completing my handover documents with meticulous care. Everything was in flawless order. At noon, I opened my desk drawer and withdrew a white envelope. Inside lay the uncontested divorce petition, already signed by me. I drew a deep breath. This had been our understanding from the beginning, a strategic alliance. With the objective achieved, I had no right to tether Alex any longer. He deserved a partner who came to him through love, not vengeance. I walked to his office. He was on a video call with international partners and motioned for me to wait. I settled onto the familiar sofa, watching him, the focus, the decisiveness, the brilliant mind that had become so profoundly dear to me. I realized with sudden, aching clarity how deeply I would miss him. When the call ended, he crossed the room smiling. "What's S? Has my CFO uncovered another embezzler?" I didn't return the smile. I placed the white envelope on the coffee table. "No, I'm here to terminate our contract." The warmth vanished from his face. He stared at the envelope, then at me, eyes darkening. "What is this?" "The divorce papers," I said, voice level. "We had an agreement. When the mission was complete, I would grant you your freedom. Melanie is imprisoned. The company is secure. My purpose is fulfilled." Alex lifted the envelope, but did not open it. He turned it slowly between his fingers. "You truly wish to leave?" "Yes. I've taken enough from you. I now have sufficient means to live comfortably. I want to rediscover myself." "Rediscover yourself?" A faint, bitter edge touched his tone. "Or escape?" "I'm not escaping. I'm honoring our terms. You're a businessman, Alex. Of all people, you understand the sanctity of a contract." I stood, unable to hold his gaze any longer. "I've already packed my belongings at the penthouse. Thank you for everything. Goodbye." I turned and walked away, each step heavy as iron. I waited, hoping for him to speak, to ask me to stay. Only silence followed. I closed the door behind me, and the tears finally fell. I returned to the small condo I had purchased with my own funds. For 3 days, I attempted to reclaim a normal life, yoga, shopping, meeting friends, but my thoughts were in chaos. I checked my phone constantly. Nothing. Alex never called. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, my heart lurched. It was Alex. I opened the door. He looked weary, yet immaculate in his suit. Without a word, he stepped past me into the apartment. "What are you doing here?" I asked, striving for composure. "Did you sign the papers?" He gave no reply. Instead, he withdrew the divorce petition from his jacket pocket, held it before me, and tore it in half, then in quarters, crumpling the fragments in his fist. "What are you doing?" I breathed. "Canceling the termination," he said evenly. "As chairman, I do not approve this resignation." "This is absurd. This is our marriage, not the company." He stepped closer, pressing me gently against the wall until I could feel the heat radiating from him. "Listen, Ava, my assets are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. My books are a labyrinth. I have thousands of employees. I cannot manage it alone. You are the only person who understands every corner of this empire, the only person I trust without reservation. Are you really going to abandon ship now and leave me to drown in the chaos? I can hire another CFO, I whispered. I can hire a CFO, he said, eyes burning into mine. I cannot hire a wife. I don't need a trophy to adorn my home. I need a partner, someone strong enough to stand beside me, sharp enough to challenge me, ruthless enough to defend this family with me. That person is you. But we began with a contract. The most enduring contracts, he interrupted, are the ones both parties wish to renew for life. I want to renew this marriage contract with you, Ava. Term, indefinite. Profit sharing, 50-50. I'll bear all the risk. Will you sign? It was the most ruthlessly pragmatic, shark-like, and profoundly romantic proposal I had ever heard. No poetry, yet it stirred me more than any tender words ever could. He was not declaring love in the conventional sense. He was declaring me irreplaceable. I glanced at the shredded paper on the floor, then back at him. You're a shrewd negotiator, securing both a CFO and a wife without recruitment costs. He gave a rare, radiant smile. I'm an investor. I never allow the best deal of my life to slip away. He leaned down and pressed a kiss to my forehead. Come home, Ava. The penthouse is cold without you. I can't sleep. I returned to the riverfront penthouse. This time, I was no guest, no performer. I was its mistress and Alex's true partner. Our life was no cinematic romance. We were two relentless workaholics. Dinners often became spirited debates over strategy. Yet beneath the pragmatism lay an unbreakable bond. One evening, we sat on the balcony, the river glittering below. I rested my head on his shoulder, enveloped in quiet peace. You know, I murmured, I once believed happiness required sacrificing everything for a husband. Now I understand that true happiness is remaining yourself, being respected, and conquering new heights alongside the person you love. Alex tightened his arm around me. You know, you taught me that a woman can be the most formidable warrior. Thank you for walking into that cafe. Thank you for accepting my insane proposal. And thank you, I laughed softly, for refusing to sign my divorce papers. Never, he said, kissing my hair. I'm a shark. Once I bite, I never let go. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and smiled. The quarterly report just arrived. Profits up 30%, all thanks to my wife. So what's my bonus? I teased. You get me for the rest of my life. Is that sufficient? I laughed, heart overflowing. The painful past had receded into memory. Kevin and Melanie were repaying their debts to society, and I held something real, a tangible happiness built not on sacrifice, but on intellect, strength, and a mature, formidable love. The marriage contract, forged in revenge, had quietly transformed into a lifetime commitment.